see, and that's the main reason why this thing gets blocked up, because the guy has been driving it, couldn't be bothered letting anyone know, brings it when it's finally broken. Look, if you've got no internal heating and it's minus 18 outside, surely to God you must realise there's a problem with your vehicle if it's not warming up. Well, the fact that this one ain't warming up, and if you look at that value there, that's the reason. That's one of the reasons, not all, but one of the reasons why the DPF system hasn't been regenerating, and why it's now blocked, and why the car will not physically go in there, it just won't drive. It's just, there's no power at all, basically. And that's the reason. And it starts off with a simple thing. Again, we're going to go through this, but not like the other video where we've got fault code synopsis. Like this fault code started from this point, then the next fault code, then the next fault code. We're going to actually look more at physical parts on the vehicle in that order. And then we're going to look at a little bit of something else which, ties into that, but it's not, there's no fault code for it. That just relies on using this, using your eyes, and then spotting it yourself. So let's just check that out.
So it's really straightforward. 480A, 481A, you've got a blocked, clogged, skanky DPF. The reason for that we're going to go into soon. There's lots of reasons, but we'll get into that. The reason this fault code comes up is a feedback from the differential pressure sensor or the back pressure sensor, depending on the system fitted. If it gets spilled up above a certain amount, well, if we take a look at the recorder there, regeneration right, fault code, I did speed it up 5 times, dealership before you melt up the DPF. What we're going to do is look at a couple of things there. First of all, you need to look at the thermostat itself. It's old. Throw it in the bin. Don't bother testing it. Beware when you take off the thermostat housing. You will replace it, of course. Watch out for the top left bolt, as in this case, it's snapped off even with heat. Just beware of that. Try and avoid snapping it if you can. Thing that's often overlooked is the transmission oil cooler thermostat also. Again, not expensive, it's old. You can test it by driving the vehicle. You should have, sort of in winter time, I managed to get 70 degrees C after a 15-minute drive, which is pretty hot considering it was minus 15, minus 18 outside. If you don't get such a good temperature, then you know you've got basically a little bit of an issue there if the thermostat is constantly open and the transmission temperature doesn't rise accordingly. And then the last one is the so-called EGR thermostat. This one is so cheap. Again, just throw it in the bin. Don't bother testing it. It's common to fail. Now, on this particular car, the main thermostat had failed. The other two, the transmission oil cooler thermostat was perfect. No problem with that. EGR thermostat, threw it away, put a new one on. So that was the cooling system taken care of. Now then, what else can we look at before we can get this thing up and running and ready for another regeneration? Well, when the vehicle was on the motorway, I actually managed a peak pressure of 465 millibar, which is absolutely incredible. The maximum is, I think, between 150 and 180. But even then, 150 millibar, you're going on the sort of the almost getting block stage, really. So obviously, we knew there was a massive problem. This was actually prior to changing those thermostats. So we've done the thermostats. Now what we need to do is Well, after the treatment with the JLM, the back pressure had dropped from 45 millibar down to around 6, maybe a bit less. So that was a very good successful unblocking of the old DPF. So very happy with that one. Then I wanted to carry on road testing the vehicle just to make sure that all the sensors and everything was working, because it came to me in a right state with a complete lack of power. Power returned beautifully after the treatment with the JLM. Here we have the exhaust gas temp, and as I wrote there, a minimum of 270 degrees C is required to start the process of DPF regeneration. And we see that 25 kilometers ago, our regeneration, which we forced from the Thinktool, was successful. Total remaining life, 244,000 kilometers thereabouts, but that can be reset with pretty much any diagnostic tool, and it's just a value. And I guess they designed it to either make money on spare parts in the future, or to just ensure that emissions were kept tight throughout the life of the vehicle. And probably they thought, the engineers, yeah, around 200,000, it's going to need a new DPF, but we don't really change them. Obviously, we just reset that, because no one has thousands of euros just to throw away on a DPF unit when it, in my opinion, passes all the emissions tests quite satisfactorily. Here is another view of RPM in orange, coolant temperature in cyan, and coolant temperature is in blue, and in cyan is the exhaust temperature sensor before the DPF, before the oxidizing cap. Quite useful, and it's a good live data capture, and you can use that as kind of like a screen record device to play back when you're in the workshop after road test. Now, something I did notice only after I did all these jobs was the charge air temp sensor. Now, obviously, at minus 18 or minus 20, it isn't going to be Barbados-ish, 72 degrees. Actually, that's really hot. And in this weather, no, I don't think so. So obviously we have a massive problem with that. And this is a common sensor, and you see it there. It's just on the intercooler pipe from the throttle down to the intercooler itself. Very easy, 2-minute job. Just twist, pop the locking tab off, put a new one on, throw it in the bin. 20 euros done. Common to fail, cause massive problems, and it will not regenerate at all because it thinks it's too hot. It's not going to start pumping 800-900 degrees in the exhaust if it thinks the intake temperature is hotter than the Sahara Desert. That's definitely something else what would have stopped it in the future from regenerating.